Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Barnet Bain.
Thank you for staying with us. That was quite a conversation with Dr. Judith Wright. Her new book, Transformed, is a gold mine. It is a treasure chest of tools and insights and
language, evelating. I like that. And the neural Wi-Fi, I think, is fantastic.
That's pretty good too, isn't it?
The idea,
we're going to have to borrow that.
We're borrowing it quite a bit. But the idea that we're transmitting and receiving, which isn't new or news to us, we've been talking about this, but that it's actually now captured in a little piece of language that relates to technology. We did our show last week where we had Deborah Rosman from HeartMath, and we were talking about this idea that the heart coherence and that we're always transmitting a kind of frequency, and that is has an impact on our world as we see it and how we interact with it and so forth and so on. I'm amazed how technology operates as a mirror.
Everything does. So
of course it does. Of course it does.
So when we talk about technology, or when she talks about brain work, what we learn from neurobiology and neuroscience, these are maps that give us a clue, not to the territory of the brain so much as to the nature of the system.
Yes.
In the same way that the HeartMath research likewise gives us an insight into the deeper, the more true nature of quantum reality. So, and the more true nature of quantum reality that is being hinted at, pointed to, both in these kinds of very, very sophisticated research and in technology as, at this point, as mundane, wonderful, and yet as accepted as the World Wide Web. All of these symbols, all of these are metaphors that point to the truer nature of who we really are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the only reason I bring it up is because it's a way that you and I talk a lot about expanding capacity to handle certain things, because it's very the whole idea of a paradigm shift is very disorganizing, at least initially. It's questioning what we've known. It's again the edge. While you and I have recognized the value in going to the edge, and we love splashing around in those sort of murky waters, the discomfort inherent in shifting and changing and being open to possibility and really inviting in mystery. Most folks aren't. But there's this interesting thing about technology where it's we've said it's sort of a siloed way that people can pick up some of this stuff. And the language of it is brilliant.
Art?
Of course, yeah, art is another brilliant way. Absolutely.
And love?
Yes, indeed. It's going to come back to love,
and nature,
and nature, sure.
But the paradigm shift that we refer to, I mean, we get more clues. We have a more intimacy with what is emerging. Yep. It's no longer what is in store.
Right.
It's simply opening our eyes to what already is. It is this move from an orientation towards the world that reduces all that is into a container that is very logical, that has absolutes and has guarantees attached to it. It reduces it to something called cause leads to effect. And what we're discovering, and it's very chaotic now because we hang on to cause leads to effect, but more and more we see that from science and experientially, more and more we're being clued into the thing that it's actually the other way around. Effects lead to causes. The effect happens first, and then our brains and our choices and our decisions scramble to fill in the blank with a bunch of causes so that we can make sense of it in time.
Right.
The The effect in this case that leads to cause is a being state. If it's a state of agitation, we will find all kinds of reasons to be agitated. If it's a state of heartful connection, we will find all kinds of reasons and stories to support heartful connection.
Yeah, and it's a possibility that, again, already exists. We find it and reorganize or remalleate, the neuroplasticity, which we didn't get to talk a lot about, but of course you and I understand enough to sort of speak to it, where we actually are reorganizing in our various structures
We're reorganizing
to handle it.
The neural nets that mark the maps that mark in many ways what are habituated responses to life, how they are laid down.
Yeah.
When those are refashioned, our responses to life can be different. In fact, they can be brand new. And in fact, they can go from one set of responses to an entirely different set of responses. It's a shift that is no less than a quantum shift, because there is no such thing as a continuum of things. Everything is either on or off, on or off, on or off, in the way that once upon a time, not very long ago, we used to run film through cameras and projectors at 24, 25 frames a second. And at that speed, it looks like a continuity. But in fact, it was on, off, 24, 25, totally different images all at the same time. In that way, myelinated neuronal nets are very similar. If you switch out the way things are wired and firing, it's almost like cutting in new frames of film. You can go off in entirely new storylines that heretofore were impossible.
Right. So what, I guess to put this in as simple terms as possible, is that these portals of possibility open up. They open up in a moment, what feels like a moment in time. The truth is they exist as a possibility, and we even talk about them in terms.
What do you mean by the portals of possibility?
So I want to go back to the way that we've described it in the past. When we talk about love, for example, that the vibratory quality of love, of our it's so hard because the language so often tracks us back to a way we've held it that in this moment in time for me isn't sufficient. But I'm going to do my best, because that's what we try to do on this show, is wander off the reservation.
Should be called From Cutting Edge Consciousness to We Do Our Best Consciousness.
We do our best consciousness. Here's the way we've described it in the past. We talk about real and more real and more real. She talked about, this is what Judith was talking about when she said authenticity is a relationship with who we can be, right? So it is our essential nature, but we can't skip steps. We don't know it until we know it. But in the moment that we arrive in a connection with a child, the conversation she was having about, being present to this child, and that space that she went into with that, that's not something you can plan or plot. You can't have it as, this is what I'm going for. But in the moment...
Why not?
Well, let me say it this way. In the moment you're in it, it's entirely familiar, and you know it. I've said this before, and I hate to constantly reference back to the same sort of analogies, but they're what I've got. So that line from Frankie and Johnny when she gets overwhelmed at the intensity of their connection, and she says, but I don't know you, and he says, you do know me. You've known me your entire life, and I've known you, but now we're here. That's, to me, captures that moment of what I would say dropping into a kind of authenticity, but it's not something, in my experience, and maybe you have a different experience of this, that when I try to plot it or plan it or control it, I mean, I have some navigators that have been helpful to kind of get me into that space, but it still always has that element of mystery, right? It's always...
Well, you can't control it.
Right.
But you do set an intention.
Absolutely.
To love and to grow. You do set an intention to be as authentic as you can, which means as honest with myself as I can be, as honest with the with what I am in touch with the truths about myself that I am in touch with. How honest can I be with them? And in that way, I think what Judith said about authenticity being the relationship with who you can be, the best that you can be, that makes a great deal of sense to me. I like the idea of I like to introduce humility into this equation right now,
Sure.
because I think they go hand in hand. Humility for me is not about walking around cap in hand,
No.
but it is about being certain about my world and yet willing to get off my certainty in an instant. That even though everything that I know about myself and the way I hold things has been one way, in the very next instant, my relationship with mystery is such that it can all be different.
That's right.
So that definition of humility coupled with Judith's definition of authenticity, being intimate with who you can be, the best that you can be, that is like a prescription for, that's like having your hand on the tiller of a sailboat, sailing off towards something great.
Right.
With an intention, but no sense of control. But a certain mastery.
Yeah.
So it's not without it is not without doing. But it is without manipulation.
Well, it's the agenda that we become aware of in this process, where if I can put down my agenda and be, as you put it, in the intention, I'm giving up the illusion of control, and I'm allowing things to play out. Then the effects or the outcomes or whatever, I marvel at them, but I know them. I know them, and I'm not confused by them.
There is a harmonic of resonance that goes along with being authentic in that way and having humility in that way. What comes along with it, what is born out of the marriage of those two energies, is an expectation that something is going to be discovered. And out of my authenticity, out of my humility, something is going to blossom. There is an expectation there. Yeah. And so sometimes when we hear, you can't have any expectations, well, that's actually control.
It is. And the gratitude or the humility or the blessing of the magical moments where it is realized.
The magical moments that you're talking about, those peak experiences you're talking about, those are the being states that we want to cultivate. When we have them, we go, oh my goodness, I remember. Just the memory of it begins to rewire you. It begins to, the atrophying of the way we were wired before becomes, that happens, and we are rewiring a new set of possibility and feeding energy in a new way into the system, and beginning, there is no doing in that,
right?
But it is being open and willing to develop a love affair with a being state. And that being state, those peak moments, they can and will increasingly become more frequent, and at some point they will be that is the default state.
It is.
And then when we take action inside of that, there's that old kind of Zen koan, or that story about what, you chop wood and you chop wood and you carry wood and you what is that? Chop wood and
I don't know the
carve
story.
Is that something about, like, what does it look like? You chop wood and you bag rice or something, and then when you have more lights lit, what does it look like after that? After you're enlightened, said the Buddha. Well, you're still chopping wood and carrying rice or whatever it is.
Right.
But you're doing it in an entirely different frequency of experience.
Right. The quality of experience changes.
The quality of experience and the frequency, the being state you're doing it in changes.
Yes. So, look, I know this has been said before.
What is that? Chop wood,
I don't
carry
know.
lumber?
I don't know. I've never heard that. The Buddha and I didn't hang out.
Anybody know in the room?
Yeah. Let's get that fixed. I'm sure someone will write us.
So write us in and help us. help us out, and let us know how you like the new intro music.
Yeah, we'll get that too. The point that I want to make is the bigger. It's not the right word. The deeper, the more profound me, the birthright of mine.
The more of me.
The more of me. Thank you. The more of me is what I want to be intimate with, and it's okay that the less of me or the small story or the parts of me come along. That's okay.
Has to come along.
It does. It's included. It's part of the entire thing, the warp and weave of my life. It's part of the net. It's part of the pearl, right? But the sense that there's something bigger than how I've held my reality, for me at this point, is a tremendous gift. We kind of covered this in the
Hey,
segment.
if you can say right now, if you can talk in those compassionate terms about the lesser aspects of you, the less tools, less ability to respond, if you're able to have perspective of that, that is the exact same frequency flipped on the other side that has a relationship with the more of you.
That's it.
So right there we are in an entirely different being
That's
state.
That's it. And that brings around the...
Chop wood, carry water.
Chop wood.
Thank you.
We knew our engineer could Google it in time, so we didn't end the show feeling helpless and lost and
Chop
confused.
wood, carry water.
That is funny. Yeah, so look, we'll all chop wood and carry water.
And when we are transformed and uplifted and enlightened and firing on more cylinders, and have more of a sense of emerging capacities and more grace and more graceful and more grace-filled, it will still look like we're chopping wood or carrying water. Or not, because I have enough humility to say, and maybe not.
Right. But it will be in a resonant sense that there's nothing that needs to be different and that everything is perfect. And the resonance, the resonant quality is a sense of love. That's the point we come to, where everything is an expression of love. Even the parts that have not felt that way get loved, which in what you were just saying shifts it energetically to where we're holding it in a more expanded consciousness, a way of holding that's far more constructive than the incessant trying to fix and solve and control and so forth and so on. It's okay. We're going to love that part too. But in the instant that we do that, we elevate the game. And that's what consciousness is. That's what this conversation is. So, we know that possibility is about playing at the edge and marveling in the clicks and the moments that we pop through and go, wow, I can see the whole picture. I'm not trying to effort. I've really, in that moment, put down my agenda. And the moment after, the agenda's back. But that's okay, too, because we understand that comes along the ride.
Well, I love what you just said. I, for a long time, felt that wisdom, the discovery of wisdom, is about being in touch with a bigger picture.
Indeed.
Without losing sight of the current picture.
And the current picture is we need to say goodbye. So we thank you all for listening. We invite you to keep coming back to Cutting Edge Consciousness.